It's Jenn Foster here with Elite Expert Insider Podcast. We're super excited to have Derek Dombeck with us today. He is a two-time international best-selling author, as well as a real estate investor for the last 20 years. We're going to dive into some stories about how he has developed a huge mastermind, how he's done real estate investing, and how you can learn and have multiple baskets in real estate investing as well. Welcome, Derek.
Well, thank you for having me, Jen. I really appreciate it.
Tell us how you got into real estate investing and when you first knew you wanted to dive into that world.
Well, it was a long time ago, it feels like at this point, but I started in 2003. And at that time, I was a construction worker. So fixing up properties was second nature for me. And
Mm-hmm.
started like most people do, bought a couple of rentals, fixed them up, and then segued into new development, which I live in Wisconsin. We were developing new properties in Florida. And so from 2003 until 2006, we had built up a fairly decent portfolio. And then the markets crashed. And that
Mm-hmm.
was a huge turning point for us. We had always used bank financing for all of our transactions up till that point, and that wasn't an option anymore. We did end up losing the majority of our portfolio, so we were in foreclosure and, financial turmoil. And it was a point in life where we had to make a decision. Do we tuck our tail and quit or figure
Mm-hmm.
out a different way? I think that's a lot of business owners are possibly going through that decision making as we speak.
Yeah, I remember back in 2008, all the differences and things that were going on. And yeah, we almost lost our house as well. We had to refinance, but I can imagine all the investment properties, like having to go through that. I know a few people that had a lot, they lost a lot in that crisis. So
Well,
tell
and
us,
I
how did you get out of it, or how did you learn that there's a different way? Because I think some people just think maybe the banks are the only way to get a loan for a house, right?
and I say this publicly all the time. That experience was a blessing, although it didn't feel like it until years later. But a lot of what I
Mhm.
get to do today is because of the stuff we went through back then. And so what I quickly started to figure out was, first of all, I didn't have a network. My wife and I were on our own, and
Mhm.
I started to look for partners. I started figuring out ways to raise private capital. But what I really learned was how to actually talk to people. And I think it's a lost art of, everyone says negotiations, but to me, every social interaction is a negotiation. And I
Right.
started studying anything I could get my hands on: sales, negotiation, because I was working through 8 foreclosures at one time, trying to negotiate with all these different lenders, and as well as continue to keep our business open and get deals. And we had to basically rob Peter to pay Paul for a long time. We started flipping houses instead of
Mhm.
holding houses. And
Mhm.
when we'd get a chunk of money, it wasn't something we really celebrated because it wasn't anything we got to keep, right? It just went to pay.
Right. You'd put it into the next project. Yeah.
Right, right. So we did that for several years. And ultimately, in about 2012, I took on a partner. We were partners for 10 years, and he had never used a bank ever to fund any of his transactions. He'd always done everything privately, which was awesome for me to see and learn. And we got to a point where we actually raised more money than we had deals to keep busy. But at that point, I had started building a network, especially locally. So we had other investors or house flippers, landlords in our areas, and our investors wanted to keep working with us. So we started a boutique lending company, which grew over time. And at the point where we Jeff bought me out of that, we were doing 26 to $30 million a year in private lending, as well
Oh,
as
nice.
our acquisitions of real estate and flipping and rentals. So
Yeah.
yeah, we
I think a lot of companies have business partners. Tell us, like, what made your partnership work? Because I know a lot of times there can be fallouts, or they don't have an agreement in place, and then one person like does something crazy. So tell us a little bit about how you worked with your partnership and what made it work well.
Well, when Jeff and I started talking about becoming partners, I had come out of a partnership that went bad. And that partnership
Mhm.
went bad when he got married, and all of a sudden his new wife was by default my partner. And, as his girlfriend, she was never involved in our business. As his wife,
Right.
her nose was in everything. So that
Mhm.
that was a challenge. So I was kind of like a jaded divorcee when Jeff and I started
Right.
talking about it. And the good thing was we took a lot of time to talk through all the different things that can happen, death, divorce, illness, just we don't feel like being partners anymore. And we built that into our original operating agreement. Further down the
Mhm.
line, we had just, sat down with a business planner, put together buy sell agreements, key man life insurance to take care of our families if one of us were to pass. And I feel
Mhm.
like 99% of people that enter into partnerships, when it's the honeymoon phase, they don't think about it. They're just like, oh, we're going to go make money
Yeah.
together. And often it's
Mhm.
too late when they figure out they don't want to be partners anymore or can't be partners anymore. And sometimes it's not about they don't want to, it's literally they can't. One side or the other could get
Mhm.
into financial turmoil and take the other one down. So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, for sure. Well, those are some really good tips. So continue on with your story. So now you have a partner, and tell us a little bit about your masterminds or how that evolved into your investor masterminds.
Yeah, so we had been going on a cruise every year for real estate investors. And through that, we had made friends from all over the country. And it got to a point where there was about 15 of us that were pretty close friends. And we said, we'd like to get together more often. We'd see each other at seminars and, occasionally at different other people's events. But it was never a setting where we could really sit down and truly help each other. So
Mhm.
we, about, I guess, 6 years ago, probably, we decided to just rent a big house every 6 months, somewhere different, so we could kind of vacation and mastermind with each other. It was invitation only. And it started out initially, it was just going to be business, deal structuring. And it quickly evolved into how much your personal life is involved in your business. And it became a lot more about vision. And that's when I started to learn about vision, specifically your personal vision and how your personal vision should drive every decision you make, and your business should support your personal vision. So, an example of that is I often would be envious of other people for taking vacations. And specifically, one of my mentors took a 30-day RV trip. And this was the year of COVID, 2000. And
Mhm.
so he took 30 days with his family, and I said, man, I would love to do that. That's impossible. And he said, well, really, is it written down in your vision for you to take a 30-day RV trip with your family? And I said, well, it is now. And
Mhm.
we didn't know how, but in 2021, we didn't know how we were going to do it. But in 2021, we took 5 weeks and traveled across the country, my wife and 3 kids, myself. And we did the same thing in 22 and 23. We actually went to Europe for 15 days and then came home and took an RV trip. And the reason I say this stuff, Jen, is because most of us will just keep on working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and
Mhm.
with some grand illusion that someday we'll be able to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Except
Right.
someday may never come, or your spouse, your kids may never see you, and that can jeopardize your relationship. So many things can happen, right? You can get sick.
Mhm.
And so our mastermind has also evolved to the point where it's more about business and personal vision than it is actually running a business. And
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you said that you wrote it down. Like you said, it's on my vision. Like you have it written down, because I know goals and visions happen if you actually write them down and you keep on looking at them, right? Or seeing them or reading them. So I bet you had a lot of people tell you, don't go on an RV trip. It's COVID. You can't travel. Like I bet you had a ton of people tell you that because I know a lot of people who I went on a trip and everyone was freaking out that I was leaving the country, but I was like, it's going to be fine. So tell us a little bit about that pushback and how did you overcome that? Because I think a lot of people will stay in that fear of, I can't go, we're going to get sick, or can't go because we're on lockdown or whatever. So tell us a little bit about how you overcame that, because I love that you just went and then you did it year after year. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, anybody that knows me personally knows that I don't conform to rules anyways. So
That's kind
COVID,
of how I am too.
I never slowed down. I mean, there
Hmm.
wasn't literally a day that I stayed home in fear. We just did whatever we could do. I live in Wisconsin. There wasn't massive lockdowns. I mean, certainly there was some, but it wasn't as involved as other parts of the country. And
Hmm.
so when we did travel, we traveled to South Dakota as an example, where
Hmm.
at that time that governor was very pro business and said, we're
Hmm.
open. So we went there. We went Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and,
Hmm.
made our way back to Wisconsin. And, there wasn't a lot of people that were really concerned for us health wise. There was a lot of
Hmm.
people wondering, how are you going to conduct business from, your travel trailer? And
Hmm.
now remember, I had a business partner, we had staff, and the first week to 2 weeks, I was a nervous wreck. And
Hmm.
I had blocked my calendar to where I was only available for 2 hours a day in the morning. And because we were traveling into time zones that were, mountain and Pacific time zone, I could get my
Hmm.
work done before my kids were really even ready to go for the day. And by
Yeah.
week 3 and 4, I started to relax and actually enjoy life. And by week 5, when we were coming home, I had completely revamped our plan for our business moving forward. I would challenge anybody to take 30 days off and see what it does for you, because
Hmm.
until you're in it and you really are living it, you cannot possibly imagine the changes. And
Yeah. And I like how you said it took you a couple weeks, because I think I'm the same. Like when I go on vacation, like I just took a week off and it was like the first 3 or 4 days I'm a little bit nervous about. And then I'm finally relaxing on the last 3 days because I'm thinking about my work or whatever. But I love that you say challenge to take 30 days, because a lot of the fires that happen, and if you don't, like if you have a team in place, they'll figure it out, right?
well, and the reality is, Jen, when you take a week off, you're really busy leading right up until when you leave, and you get a lot done. And then when you get back, oftentimes because you're not set up with systems properly, you have to play catch up. So you're overstressed.
Hmm.
When we were gone for 5 weeks, and I said we revamped our business, I could make a lot more money if I chose to, if I wanted to work more hours, right? And just really get after
Hmm.
it. But what I learned was the time with my kids and my family, that's priceless. And making more
Hmm.
money, it can wait. I don't need
Yeah.
to make more money. And ultimately, taking down another real estate deal or buying out another business or any of that stuff, that is not going to give me the joy that time with my family gave me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we came back and we actually kind of backed off. And for a long time, I don't think I worked more than 30 hours a week, maybe 25. Um,
Hmm.
that's changed now
Well,
because our vision is to grow what we're trying to grow now on a national level. So it's more
yeah.
involved, but it's a choice.
Right. Well, and I like that because you've set you like you talked about before with vision. You set a vision for how you want your life to look, and then you go for that. So I love that you have that balance of lifestyle and family and travel and seeing the world, seeing the United States. I'm sure that was a big relief in knowing that you could do that and not have to work a 9 to 5 job. Because I know that for me as an entrepreneur, that's what I really enjoy.
Well, and what my kids are getting to see and experience, not only in the United States, but internationally, we've traveled a lot with our kids. One of the events that I put on is a cruise for real estate investors. I actually took over the cruise I mentioned earlier from my friends when they kind of wanted to retire out of it. So we do that once a year, but our kids are involved, and it's called the Generations of Wealth Voyage. And I encourage anybody that attends to bring their kids, because
Mm-hmm.
my three children are building a network of other preteen and teen kids from all over the country. And that was the one thing, if you remember early in the story, I didn't have a network. I didn't have anybody when the
Mm-hmm.
markets crashed. And
Right.
now the importance of that, and it doesn't matter if the kids end up going into real estate or any business at all, they're spending time with other children who have parents that are entrepreneurial. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
big mindset shift compared to what they're seeing at their school.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so tell us a little bit more about your mastermind, how the cruises work.
Yeah, well, the cruise itself, we bring in 9 to 10 speakers. I don't allow anybody to pitch from the stage. This is all content information. It's primarily advanced strategies for real estate, as well as, there's a couple attorneys that talk about different law. There's tax experts. So it's not just real estate deals. And
Mm-hmm.
the days that we're at sea, we have conference for 4 hours, and then the rest of the day is networking. We all have dinner together in the evenings. We do a kind of an open town hall session in the evenings, which is more interactive. And the days we're in port, everybody, your new friends, your old friends, people are just going, doing excursions, hanging out, really growing their relationships. And often my wife and kids put together some theme night. So last time it was Bring the Bling. So we were all dazzled up and looked like a shiny glitter ball walking around.
Mm-hmm.
So, you get 100 people dressed up in some snazzy outfit, it draws a little bit of attention.
Yeah,
So,
that's really fun.
yeah, so that's the cruise. The mastermind itself, it's kept very small. So there's a cap of 10 business units. A business unit can be partners, an individual, or, spouses. So that leads to about 17 to 20 people that stay in a house for 4 to 5 days together. We typically go somewhere different every time, because that's part of our vision, is to travel. So we've done masterminds now. I have 3 groups currently, and the intention is to expand to a fourth. But we've done a lot of locations across the United States, but we've also done Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, Cancun, Vallecas, Aruba, St. Martin. The list goes on. So we're all getting to kind of live our vision of travel while we're working. And it's very, very intimate, right? That's the secret sauce, is we're
Mm-hmm.
all staying in a house together. So you can't escape at the end of the day. You have your own bedroom, but most of the great conversations happen on the beach, or sitting in the pool,
Mm-hmm.
or around the campfire, or whatever it is, outside of the formal mastermind sessions, which we give everybody about an hour and a half to focus on their business and their life when we're actually in session. But
Mm-hmm.
it's called the REI Circle of Trust. And it's been life changing, not only for us as the leaders and the hosts. I mean, we get all the relationships, which is awesome. But to see what has happened with our members, and to first and foremost get their visions, help them get their visions figured out, and then help everybody as a board of advisors to each other to guide you to live your vision and love your life.
I love that. Well, tell us a little bit about your books and how you became an author.
Yeah, I met a gentleman named Kyle Wilson, who Kyle Wilson was Jim Rohn's business partner before
Mm-hmm.
Jim Rohn passed. And Kyle invited me to be a part of a collaboration book where every author gets a chapter in the book. And
Mm-hmm.
there's also about half a dozen more well known individuals. And the first one was called Next Level Your Life. It ended up launching and getting, I want to say, 35 or 36 Amazon best selling categories,
Categories.
as
Mm-hmm.
well as several that were international. And then he invited me to be in his next book as well, which was called The Transformational Journey. And in that book, I talk about my journey of discovering vision. And that one hit international and bestseller in 50 different categories in, I think, 3 or 4 different countries. So
Oh, that's awesome.
I'd love to be able to, give your audience access to Next Level Your Life if they want the,
Okay.
electronic version. And is it okay if I throw a link out there, Jenn?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll put it up in the show notes. What's the link to go to
Yeah.
get there?
Just go to thegenerationsofwealth.com/join. And there will be a little opt in there, and you'll get access to Next Level Your Life. And thegenerationsofwealth.com is my platform for my podcast. And it's not specific to real estate. I mean, certainly there's a lot of real estate talk, but I bring on guests that talk about a lot of different business aspects as well. And I'd love to have anybody and everybody check that out too.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that up in the show notes. That's great that you have that you got invited to be a part of that book. That was my first book too. I was in a book with Dan Kennedy, the marketing guy. So
Oh,
that was kind of fun to do that. And that catapulted the rest of my author career. So that's pretty good. Well, thank you so much, Derek, for being on the show today. I've learned a lot of really awesome stuff, and I think it's really important for people to be part of a mastermind, whatever business, because you can have that board of advisors and bounce ideas off of each other. And so I do promote masterminds and communication and travel for sure. So thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll put the links up in the show notes for people to go and get your free book. If you guys want to write a book, here at Elite Online Publishing, we help people to write, publish, and market their books to help them build their business and brand. And my business partner, Melanie Johnson, couldn't be here today. She's actually doing a VIP day where she is helping one of our new authors write their book with our ghostwriter. So she'll be here next time. But thank you, everyone, for coming, and we'll hope to see you next time on Elite Expert Insider.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.